Soon, in 48 Years' Time, is a short story about a communist utopia in 1970 by Alexandra Kollontai. It was written in 1922. Let's check it out. January 7th, 1970. It's warm and bright, and there's a lively and festive atmosphere in the House of Rest, where the veterans of the great years of the World Revolution spend their days. The veterans decided that on the day that had once been Christmas Day, they would recall their childhood and youth by decorating a tree. A real fir tree, just like in the years before the world upheavals. The young children and the older girls and boys were enthusiastic about the idea, especially when they heard that Red Grandmother was going to tell stories about the great years of 1917. There was no problem in getting the tree. They came to an agreement with the man in charge of forestry conservation, persuading this vigilant guardian of the plant kingdom that the forest would not be ruined by the loss of just one tree stolen for such a strange and unusual festival. The candles were more difficult. The new method of lighting using reflected light rays had not only done away with the kerosene-wick lamps once and for all, but had banished electricity to the far distant provinces where the latest innovations had yet to be introduced. The younger generation had never seen candles, and the veterans of the great years had to explain them with the help of diagrams. A special conference of people who had been members of the People's Economic Council during the Revolutionary period was called to discuss the ways of producing the candles. The young people, with their clever heads and clever hands, were there to help. After a number of failings, misunderstandings, and unexpected difficulties, they managed to decorate the tree with paper decorations of various colors, with candies, nuts, sweet, juicy oranges, rosy apples, and homemade candles in homemade candle holders. The veterans and the children were unanimously of the opinion that the Commune 10 had not seen such an original and interesting festival for a long time. The young people enjoyed themselves as the young have always done. They laughed and joked. There were songs, games, and dances. But you had to take one look at the girls and boys to see how they differed from the young people who had fought at the barricades during the great years, and from those who had lived under the yoke of capitalism. The young people of Commune 10 were healthy. Their bodies were fine and supple and strong. The girls had long, luxurious plates, which they arranged carefully. For the commune strictly followed the rule that every member should have time for relaxation and care for his or her person. The communards loved beauty and simplicity, and they did not force or distort nature. The young men dressed in attractive clothes that allowed for free movement. Their hands were obviously strong and able. There was not one sick, pale, or exhausted face among all the young people who had gathered for the Fir Tree Festival. Their eyes shone brightly and their bodies were strong and firm. Their happy laughter filled the bright festive hall, and that was the most joyful change of all. The young people of Commune 10 loved life and loved to laugh. They only frowned when it came to battling against the only enemy, nature. However, they did not frown because the struggle was not to their taste, but in order to concentrate better and choose the best way to win. The struggle of men and women to control their environment was still in progress. The more victories they won, the more mysteries there were to be solved. But the young people were not afraid of the battle. What would life be like without struggle? With the need to stretch the mind and strive forward towards the unknown and unattainable, life on the commune would be dull without it. The life of the commune is organized in the most rational way. Everyone has a profession and everyone has some favorite pursuit. Everyone works at their own vocation for 2 hours a day, contributing in this way to the running of the commune. The rest of the time, the individual is free to devote his or her energies to the type of work he or she enjoys to: science, technology, art, agriculture, or teaching. Young men and women work together at the same professions. Life is organized so that the people do not live in families, but in groups, according to their ages. Children have their palaces. The young people, their smaller homes. Adults live together communally in the various ways that suit them. And the old people together in their houses. In the communes, there are no rich people and no poor people. The very words rich and poor have no meaning and have been forgotten. The members of the commune do not have to worry about their material needs, for they are provided with everything: food, clothes, and books and entertainment. In return for this, the individual provides 2 hours daily work for the commune, and the rest of the time the discoveries of a creative and inquiring mind. The commune has no enemies, for all the neighboring peoples and nations have long since organized themselves in a similar fashion, and the world is a federation of communes. The younger generation does not know what war is. Ah, the horrors of communism! The young people insisted that the veterans of the great years tell them all about the battles between the Reds and the Whites. But the veterans were not anxious to talk about the war on the day of the fir tree. They thought it more appropriate to speak about the leaders of the revolutions. They promised to begin the stories when the candles had burned low and everyone had been given their sweets. The young people hurried to bring the glass trolleys into the hall. The sweets they liked so much were laid out in gaily colored, artistically decorated bowls. The sooner we've had our sweets and the candles on the fir tree have been finished burning, the better, thought the children. But the veterans watched the lights burn low with a sense of sadness. The candles remained then, it is true, of that old and long forgotten system of capitalism which they had so hated in their youth. But the past had been ennobled by their great striving for progress. Their dreams had been fulfilled, but the life was now passing them by, and their old limbs could not match the bold flights of the young people. Much of the life and many of the aspirations of the young people were incomprehensible to them. Granddad, I know what the word capitalist means, boasted lively lad who was tucking into the special holiday pie, and I know what a ruble is and what a money is. We saw money in a museum. Did you have money, Granddad? Did you carry it in a little bag in your pocket? And then there were people. Now, what were they called? Thieves. That's right, isn't it? And they took money out of the pockets of their comrades. How very strange it must have been. And they all laughed at the strange past. The veterans of the revolution somehow felt awkward and embarrassed about the past, when there had been capitalists and thieves and money and ladies. The last of the candles flickered out and the trolleys were rolled to one side. The young people gathered impatiently around the storytellers. For time's sake, we have to skip ahead. Please go on and read this in its entirety for yourself. It's awesome. Hunger? You went hungry? You must have been very unorganized and ignorant. Ignorant, unorganized, the young people could pass no sterner judgment on Red Grandmother's contemporaries. But without us and our firm faith in the triumph of communism, without our fierce and determined struggle against capitalism and the enemies of the workers, you would never have known the benefits of universal organization and the joy of free, creative work. We understand, but our tasks are on an even larger scale. The young people held their heads high, facing the future boldly. They turned their eyes to the stars and the dark black cloth of the sky visible through the wide windows of the festive hall. You achieved your aims, and we will achieve ours. You subdued the social forces, we will subdue nature. Sing with us, Red Grandmother, the new hymn of the struggle with the elements. You know the tune. It is your own international, but the words are new. They call us to struggle, to achieve things, to move forward. Let the fir tree burn out. Our festival is in front of us. Our festival is a life of endeavor and discovery. What a beautiful story, am I right? Now, please do yourself and the working class a favor. Go on and read this in its entirety. I did have to skip a really awesome part due to time. Alexandra Kollontai, soon in 48 years' time. Free to read on Marxist.org. Of course, I'll toss the link in the description. Solidarity, y'all.